Hey everybody, welcome back to the Jeremy Swenson Racing channel. Today we're going to talk about sway bars and how you can use adjustable sway bars or different size sway bars to help you go faster and make a faster lap time. So a sway bar, how does it work? Well, let's have a peek, shall we? In your car is a sway bar. It connects one side of a control arm to the other side. And it's just a bar that runs along the car. So as you're turning, the car naturally wants to lean the opposite way that you're turning. And if we resist that by pushing down on this tire wants to lift because the car is leaning that way. But with a sway bar, it pushes down on the opposing side at the same time. So that's what helps keep a car flat and stable around turns. But that can create a big difference in balance depending on what you are doing from front to rear. So having an adjustable sway bar or different sizes can make a huge difference. We've got a few splined bars. So these are just straight. I had them in my old race car, and you can see a big difference in thickness. So the job of a sway bar is to twist and to convert that twisting motion into basically a spring. So the thinner wall over here is going to twist easier than the thick wall. And generally speaking, a thicker bar will be harder to twist than a thinner bar. So if you think of that dynamic, as a car's leaning one way, if we can resist that motion, it will transfer that weight more to the other axle. So let's think of this race car front to back. We've got two sway bars. Let's say we've got a toothpick sway bar on the front. It's basically doing nothing. And we've got a stiff one on the rear. So as the car is leaning over, that rear axle is resisting the twist of the car, the leaning of the car, but the front isn't. So as it's leaning over, that right rear is now wanting to transfer that weight to the front right, and instead of keeping it back there. So that car would be crazy loose, right? If there was no front sway bar and there was a thick one on the rear, it would be really loose. The rear would lose traction almost immediately, and because it's going to want to transfer that twist, that leaning over motion, it wants to transfer it to the front. Now, let's say we have a perfectly balanced setup, and that's a driver preference thing typically, or a track dependent thing. But now, as we lean the car over, we're turning left. The car's leaning right. As we lean it over, now the rear and the front are working together to maintain that perfect balance that you want mid-corner, and that's what makes lap time. So dialing in your steady state turning. I'm thinking back just a few races ago. We're at Road America. We're getting through the carousel, and this car was perfect through the carousel. And there's so many factors to this, but steady state turning at a constant speed, you're typically looking at sway bars and spring rate, and that's typically where you're going to generate your balance from at a steady state. Sorry, it looks like I'm looking into the distance, but I'm looking at myself. Anyway, so let's go conversely now to the first scenario. Let's say we've got a big fat sway bar on the front and nothing in the rear. As we transfer that weight to the right, that right front is now being resisted, and it's going to transfer that weight to the rear, and being there's no resistance in the rear, it's just going to want to fall over on that right rear tire, and it would drive off like crazy, but it would understeer terribly. So hopefully that makes sense to you, but it really tells you as you're on track, how can you make more speed? And balance is so important, not only to driver confidence, but the actual physical capabilities of the car. If you can nail the balance and get the car driving how you want, that's how you're fast.